Okay everyone, welcome to the video, and here in this video we're once again going to be talking about all the ships in Star Citizen, trying to go through our endeavour of naming and giving a brief description to every single Star Citizen ship, either released or just announced. No matter what stage it is in development, we're going to give it a brief description just to let you know about it, and have it all in one place in one series of videos, because there's a lot of ships. There is a lot of ships. And in today's video we are going to be talking about Anvil Aerospace, so since we've got a lot to talk about, let's just jump right in and give Anvil Aerospace a brief description. Right! Anvil are one of the two main military contractors that make military ships. Not much to talk about there. They are relatively new in comparison to Aegis, the other main military manufacturer, but I wouldn't let you fool them. The two of them are both head to head, getting lots and lots of military contracts. Anvil has recently started to dip its toes into the civilian market, but it is much more of a military contractor with just its toes dipped in the civilian market, is a good way to put it. They like to bring cream to they like to be the cream on the crop. They like to be the pinnacle, the peak. Obviously, because they're a military contractor, everything needs to be finely tuned, really well performing, and needs to just do its job to perfection. It needs to be military grade because they're a military contractor. So, with Anvil having its quick, brief description, let's jump into their first ship alphabetically, which, if I go to my notes, is the Arrow. The Anvil Arrow. This ship is a military grade light fighter, great for intercepting, being fast. It's not got a lot of firepower and it's really low on the armor front, but this ship's all about being fast and nippy. A really skilled pilot in one of these is going to be an absolute terror to take down, flying evasive maneuvers here, there, everywhere, staying in the blind areas of other ships so you can't even shoot at them. These are going to be incredibly powerful ships in a skilled player's hands, but rather weak in an unskilled player's hands. Its guns are quite small, doesn't have a lot of firepower, next to no armor. If you sneeze on it, it will be destroyed, but incredibly fast, insanely fast and agile, and that's what it's all about. So, try to keep these as brief as possible. Let's move on from the Arrow onto the C8 Pisces, which was next alphabetically. Right, the C8 Pisces. The C8 Pisces is a great little runabout ship. You get one free with the Carrack because it is designed for the Carrack. It is the Carrack's runabout, which we'll talk about the Carrack more in a couple of minutes because it is next alphabetically from this manufacturer. But if the Carrack is the Starship Enterprise from Star Trek, the Pisces is those little shuttles you see them taking off and doing missions in. It is the perfect little snubs. It's the starter snub for the Carrack. It makes quite a good little starter ship. It makes an okay little starter ship if you use it as one, if you get the jump drive, because it does have room for the jump drive, but it doesn't start as one by default. It does have for a snub ship, it does have the quantum drive by default, so then if you get the jump drive, it goes again. Brilliant starter if you get the jump drive. It's already got the quantum. Not much else to talk about here. Like the Carrack that we're going to be talking about next, because the two were bundled together, it used to be a military contract ship. It used to be sold to the military, and it was used as part of the Carrack, and whatever the Carrack's missions, it was the little snub fighter that came with the Carrack. But when the time for that contract to end, Anvil were like, this ship's still half decent. We're going to take the Carrack and we're going to take the Pisces, which is the one we're talking about right now, and we're going to demilitarise them and sell them to civilians. So they took some of the guns off them and then started selling them to civilians. So the C8 and the Carrack come with military variants of it, which is the military ones that used to fly around back in the day, and then you've got the civilian ones, which the C8 is, and the C8X Pisces is the military one that still has the full armament of guns. So that's the two variants of this ship. But yeah, C8 Pisces is the runabout from Star Trek and Star Citizen. That's not much else to say. It's got a little bit of cargo capacity, has a few seats for people to sit down in, and will be perfect for if you're like up in your Carrack in space, you don't want to take the full Carrack down to planet, or maybe only a couple of people want to go down to planet, or maybe you want to pick someone up or drop them off. The whole Carrack doesn't have to go down to planet, just send the little runabout instead. And it'll be much more important in the Star Citizen universe than it is in the Star Trek universe, where there's the transporters. Like, you can't in Star Citizen just say, beam me up, Scotty, you're going to need to get this little thing to come down and pick you up. That sort of stuff, because obviously you don't want to take the full Starship Enterprise down to planet to pick up one person. So, I've tried as little as possible to talk about the Carrack here, but I think it's time. We've talked about the little snub, I think it's time we talk about the parent ship, because you'll get a lot more information on the C8 Pisces by talking about the Carrack, because it is designed to be the snub for this next ship, the Carrack. Right, the Carrack, just like the little snub we were talking about a second ago, was originally a military contract ship, but has now been stopped being used by the military and been refurbished into an exploration ship for civilian use. The Carrack is probably the most popular ship in all of Star Citizen. It is one hell of a good ship. It is a multi-crew ship recommended for 4 to 6 players, and it has a bit of everything. It has really good scanners, it's got some good defensive turrets all across it. It's not the type of ship I'd be wanting to purposefully go to battle in, but it's got enough armaments there to keep itself safe from pretty much anything but a determined attack. So like if you run across a couple of pirates, it's not going to be a big deal kind of thing, but if someone dedicated is coming after you, that's when you're going to have to start to worry. It doesn't have the armament to sort of face off that sort of people. It's got medical facilities, it has good armour as a throwback to its military days, and it has got good amount of cargo space, and as well those cargo spaces will one day be modular, so you could take one of those cargo areas out. It's much like the Caterpillar that we talked about in the Drake video, where you're going to be able to take one room out and put a different room in to give it different functionality. It's got bed and amenities for all these people. I'm pretty sure it has a pool table in there. I think I remember there being a pool table. It has really good scanners and sensors for exploration. It obviously has the little hangar bay for getting your little snub that we talked about previously, the Pisces in there. It is one of the most popular ships in Star Citizen, because for a group of small friends, maybe 4 of yous, wanting to tackle as much content as possible, the Carrack's going to be like the premium experience for a small group like that. And one of the other reasons it is insanely popular is that it is the closest ship in role and function to the Starship Enterprise from Star Trek. So a lot of Trekkies really like this ship because they want to have the same sort of role in this universe as, say, the Starship Enterprise has in Star Trek, and this is the closest they're going to get to that. When it comes to exploration actual vehicles, the Carrack is the creme de la crop, the premium, the best, the highest tier exploration ship in-game at this point in time. And I think its size is quite good too, so even though there's going to be a lot of ships that are a lot bigger than it, I think the Carrack is the biggest ship they mentioned that can fit through any jump point, travel point that I wouldn't quote me on that though. It was either the biggest ship that can fit through all of them, or the biggest ship that can fit through the vast majority, or it was along those lines anyway. Because the vast majority of travel points this ship will be able to get through, and it's only maybe the really smallest ones, the really small ones that it won't be able to get through. That maybe a terrapin would be better for going through and exploring. I can't remember this stuff off the top of my head, but when it comes to exploration, this is the ship you want. This is the best ship whatsoever. I know most people that have one of these are planning to use it. This is home. The Carrack is going to be their home. It's going to be their flying home for them and their friends, and it is one of the most, if not the most loved ships in the game, with only the Mercury Star Runner coming close. For the lols, some people would say, oh, but the Argo Cargo had won for the more popular ship in the ship showdown, but even though I was rooting for the Argo Cargo in that sort of thing, that little ship showdown event that was recently, I don't think that means the Argo Cargo is more popular. I think that means that memes are more popular, and memes will always be more popular than anything. But I do think when it actually comes down to who, like, if you actually gave everyone the chance to either have a free Carrack or a free Argo, I think 99% of people would take the Carrack, and I think that's where it really sort of proves which one's more popular. And you could then argue again that that's just because the Carrack facilitates a lot more gameplay, but then I would argue again after that that yes, of course, that's because it facilitates more gameplay. That's why people like it. Like, the gameplay that it facilitates is a reason you like it. Yes, you could go back and forth, and there's lots of arguments for both sides, but yes, we're not really. I'm rambling. It's the Carrack though. It deserves a bit more than its brief description. It deserves a wee bit of rambling, the Carrack, because it is insanely popular. It's not my favourite ship, but I think it is definitely safe to say this, with the Mercury Star Runner as a close runner up, would be where I would put my money on if I was a betting man for being the most popular ships in Star Citizen. So, moving on next, where's my list? Alphabetically, we have, one of my favourites next, the Crucible. The Crucible! A flying garage is probably the simplest way to put it. It was obviously a military contract, because military need to maintain and look after their fleets. And it is also a civilian contract, because civilians buy these too, because who wouldn't want a flying garage? It is a flying repair ship. It will be as good at repairing as any, like, as any landing pad on a space station, as pretty much anywhere other than a dry dock for a capital ship. This thing will be able to repair fighters by them landing inside its little scarab, its little flying hangar it can sort of picks up and carries around, or it can drop the scarab and then use its arms to maneuver around a capital ship and repair a capital ship too. You're going to need something like this to change the guns or repair the guns on a capital size ship. Yeah, capital size ships are going to be almost impossible to repair without either a dry dock or a crucible. I'm saying dry dock because that's like our versions of it, but like the Star Citizen versions are more like the docks Crusader that build ships. You're going to need something to that sort of scale to repair a capital class ship, and even like a space station won't be able to repair a capital class ship unless it is a space station designed that has got those docks attached. But yes, vast majority won't. Like in Stanton, I think only the Crusader like dry dock. I'm calling them dry docks, but they're not dry docks, but they work like a dry dock. It's the only place to repair capital class ships. I don't think there is a single place in Pyro that can repair capital class ships. So if you're a pirate and you are planning to have a capital class ship or something of that scale and size, you need one of these. You need one of these. just to repair your ship. Even if you don't have a capital class ship, I would recommend these things to pirates definitely, because your safe havens are going to be few and far between, so bringing a place with you to repair is going to be incredibly important. Even if you're just in a fighter, then it kind of, like, I suppose you could use it as the fighter's hangar too, but it's not really what it's designed for. Yeah, Crucible, great. I spent too long talking about it because I think it's really important and not enough people appreciate it, but we really need to move on because I spent too long rambling already. Right, so Crucible, moving on to the Devastator. Just realised I'd forgot to talk about whether the ships have been released, so we'll quickly go through all the ships that have been released so far. Arrow, out, in-game, usable. Sea Pisces and the Expedition, out, in-game, usable. Carrack, out, in-game, usable. Crucible, no idea, though I would expect in the next couple of years because we're going to need it in Pyro. Right, as I said, moving on to the Devastator. The Devastator, this is going to be another really fast one. It's a ship made by Anvil Aerospace for the UAE military. We know nothing other than that. That's it, that's all we know. We just know there is a ship manufactured by Anvil called the Devastator for the military. So nothing else to talk about. Let's move on to the F7A. Okay, the F7 Hornet series. The F7 is the current mainstream military fighter. It is a medium fighter. I just want to double check. I think, yep, it is a medium fighter. I wasn't sure. I just wanted to double check because it might have been a heavy fighter. I didn't think it was a heavy fighter, but it is a medium. Yeah, the F7A is the current latest military, well, the F7A Mark II, I should say, is the current mainstream military carrier-based fighter plane for the military. So if you end up fighting the military, this is going to be the main fighter you're coming up against. They are flying tanks, they've got a hell of a lot of firepower. There's lots of variants, so you've got the F7A Hornet Mark II, which is the current mainstream military fighter. Then you have the F7AR Hornet Tracker, which is basically a scout military version of the Hornet. Then you've got the F7C Hornet, which is the base model, which is the current model sold to civilians, which we'll be able to easily get our hands on in game just at any good retailer kind of thing. So it's the civilian version of the Hornet. It has less arm, I think it has less armor, has less guns, but you can buy like the back turret instead of the cargo capacity, so you can upgrade it so it has the same amount of firepower, so it only just has slightly less armor than the military variant. Then you have the F7CR Hornet Tracker, which is what we were talking about to the A Hornet Tracker earlier. The C is to this one, so it is the Scout civilian version that has the radar instead of the turret. Then there's the F7CS Hornet Ghost, which is a stealth variant of the Hornet. Has its armor reduced slightly to put stealth armor on. And then you have the F7CM Super Hornet, which is the civilian variant of the Hornet. It's the basic base model of the Hornet, except it has an almost as good as the military like loadout. It comes with the ball turret on the back by default. It's basically the civilian model fully upgraded to be as close to the military variant without actually being the military variant. So yeah, there's lots of different, it is medium fighter, lots of firepower, several variants which don't change up the strategy too much. It is medium fighter, some leaning towards scouts, some leaning towards stealth. What else? I'm pretty sure there was something else I wanted to say. Yeah, this thing has been around a very long time. It has been the military's main fighter for a long time, and they are actually in the process of starting to replace their Hornets, which is also another reason why we're getting them in the civilian market, because just like the Carrack, they're starting to go out of practice in the military, but they're just starting that process. So like 95% of their fighters is still this. They're just starting to like get rid of them, just starting the process of selling them to replace them with what I think is next. Yes, the F8 instead of the F7, the F8. A Lightning. The F8A Lightning is what the UAE want to be their mainstream fighter. It is the new kid on the block. It is the creme de la crop. It is a heavy fighter with a hell of a lot of firepower, hell of a good armor, and still getting good and competitive maneuverability. It is, when it comes to fighters, accept no substitute kind of thing. This is the pinnacle of humanity's technology. The best, the creme de la crop in engines, the creme de la crop in armor, the creme de la crop in firepower, the extremely expensive, breaking edge technology that have just started to be manufactured, and they're just starting to roll these out. So this is like if you're going back to World War II, imagine they just started to build Tiger tanks in Germany. They're just starting to roll them off the production line. That is the sort of stage here. And Germany is really wanting to get, obviously, lots and lots of Tiger tanks everywhere. And obviously, they eventually, like, had to stop productions for other reasons. But hopefully the UAE doesn't have that problem here. A lot of information on this is going to be, well, they have been in-game. The Hornet, obviously, the last ship we talked about, is in-game and flyable. Everything in it is workable. The Lightning is in-game. There is the model for it. They have been flying around. I'm not sure if they're fightable when they have been in-game, but they're not by us players. They're not usable by us players, is what I'm trying to say. People have got into the cockpits of them. I don't think they've been able to fly them. They might have been able to fly them. Again, wouldn't quote me on this because I've not done it. I know they have only been in game for NPCs, and again, I don't know if they can fight them. I'm repeating myself a lot here just because I'm not really sure, but they're not for us. They're not for us at this point in time. The way we can get them is if we complete Squadron 42, we will get the civilian variant, which I'm not really sure what actually even changes. What is the difference between the FAC and the FA? Civilian variant, I'll just look this. With 2 C's in the cup. I don't think it's even been officially. Right, if I just go into this here, I scroll down. Yeah, we don't have information on the civilian variant, so we don't know. The civilian variant will be changed in some way, shape, or form. We're not sure. And there has been mentions of a training variant which doesn't have weapons, but does have a second seat to allow a trainer to be in there with them, which is kind of cool. Which I'm guessing is what they need in. I'm guessing they needed that for Squadron 42. So a lot of the information on this ship is hush hush because it's Squadron 42. I'm guessing it's going to be your end game ship of choice in Squadron 42. Like, going to be one of those things you have to aspire towards, and eventually you unlock it, and then you're going to feel like a god. Then the difficulty is going to get ramped right up, and then you're going to be like tooth and nail fighting to complete the game. It's going to be the end game of Squadron 42. I'm 99% sure of that, which is why it's a wee bit hush hush, which is why they don't let us fly around in game at the moment. And yeah, you'll get, if you complete Squadron 42, you'll get one of these for free to fly around and fight in. So yeah, if you've got Squadron 42, look forward to it because it's going to be great. Right, so moving on from that to the Gladiator. Gladiator, before I forget, is in-game, flyable, and completely working. It is a military light bomber, so where you'll be expecting to see lots of Hornets and these and say Bengals that take off. The Hornets cover these kind of things, and then these things unleash their bombs. It is kind of old, and I mean in game and out of game. It's been around, just take a look at my notes here, since version 1.1.1, so it is really old, a really old model. It really needs a balance check and a gold, brought up to gold standard, because it is, as I said, it's really old outside the game. It is really old assets, so it doesn't even look that great compared. It's not up to the current standards in the looks department. It's not up to the current standards in the utility compartment. It is just not up to current standards. I expect it to be a really cool ship once it's brought up to current standards. You can replace one of its turrets with a tractor beam, so it's going to be great for like very light salvage or utility around and about the fleet, because it's obviously going to be part of a carrier fleet. Like you could see like a couple of wings of these in a Bengal with a couple of wings of Hornets. Yeah, it's the military light bomber, not much else to talk about. So moving on from the Gladiator to the Hawk. The Hawk. We have once again Anvil taken a foray into the civilian market and light fighter. So whereas the Arrow we talked about earlier on was a military grade light fighter, this is not a military grade light fighter, but it is a light fighter with a different role. It is designed for the civilian market and pretty specifically for the bounty hunter market. This is an entry-level bounty hunting ship. It is one of the coolest ships in game, I think. For a light fighter, it's by default has a couple of its weapons swapped for distortion cannons. So it's going to be really good at disabling enemy ships, because that's what the distortion guns do. They're like little EMP guns. So instead of dealing physical damage, it's sort of like throws off their electronics. Like if you keep hitting the engines will turn off, kind of thing. It's going to be great at disabling enemy ships, not dealing real damage to them. Then it has its actual laser repeaters as well. Laser autocannons actually it has by default, looking at the notes here. But the thing that makes it really, really cool is it's got this little seat. This sort of comes down underneath it and opens up, and it's a little prison seat. Let's come down. It comes, so you can send it out. This thing is going to be great for stalking cities, and that's what you can even see in its trailer. It sort of stalks a city, and then the bounty is like been out at a bar. He's on his way, half drunk, on his way home. This thing appears out of nowhere, just like aims the guns at him and like sends the seat out, like get in. It is a bounty hunting little prison ship, light fighter, great for ambushing, grabbing someone when they're unprotected and unsuspecting, and then taking them to jail or to Jabba the Hutt in this game's version of Jabba the Hutt to get your money. It's entry-level bounty hunting, and it is perfect for what it does. So, the Hawk. Let's move on from the Hawk to the Hurricane. The Hurricane is another military-grade heavy fighter from Anvil. This ship is a good way to describe it, as it's really designed to be a really good jousting ship. It's in a questionable place in the game at the moment. It is in game, is flyable, just like the Hawk, the ship we talked about before, is in game, is fully functioning. So yeah. And what it really is a fast, it's really great in a straight line, but it's not fast at manoeuvring like to the sides, to the left. It's not really manoeuvrable. So it's fast, but it's not manoeuvrable. And then it has two really big guns in the pilot's control. And then it has some really, like a really big turret on the back of the ship. And that is what it's really good at. It's really good at sort of flying in and dealing a devastating strike and then running away and turning around, coming back, doing the same, going the other way. Jousting is what it's really, really sort of great designed at doing. It's bound to be actually pretty damn powerful as an attack craft as well. Not from having the one absolutely massive gun like the Crusader series' Ares, but just from the fact that that turret has so much firepower, and then the pilot has so much firepower, could be really good at doing strafing runs. As a fighter, for fighting other fighters, you're going to be mainly relying on that turret in a dogfight, because again the maneuverability is really low, so you're either going to be relying on that alpha strike to like instantly take out the enemy fighter, or your turret dealing with them. It is a hell of a lot of firepower in the turret. Let me just double check here. So the pilot has 2 size 3 guns, and the turret has 4 size 3 guns, so that is a lot of firepower. To put it into perspective, the arrow from earlier had 2 size 2s and 2 size 1s, I'm pretty sure. So yeah, that is a lot of firepower. Something else that has a good amount of firepower is the Cutlass Black. It has the 2 size 2s and 2 size 1s, which were all gimbaled though, so that's size 3s and size 2s. Down to size 1s and 2s, but yeah, we're not here to talk about other ships. The Hurricane got a hell of a lot of firepower. In a questionable place in game at the moment, could use a bit of its gold tuning to make it really nice. But yes, moving on to the next ship, which is the Liberator. The Liberator, a relatively new ship, for us anyway. It's got introduced literally to the game a couple of months ago, and by introduced I mean announced. It is not in game, it is in development. I expect it to come online in the next couple of years when Pyro comes online, because it's going to be really important. And what is the ship? It is a pocket carrier, so it has a really good amount of cargo space, and it has several hangars. Well, it has the one big hangar and several landing pads to allow it to be a mini pocket airship carrier. It's literally what it is, what it says in the tin. It's a light carrier. We'll be able to do light repair and refueling. If you're a group of pirates, maybe 3 or 4 of you, this is going to be like a need something like this, so that you can fly around in Pyro, find stuff you want to ambush, and use this as kind of like a little mobile base for you. Really is what it says in the tent. It's a mini mobile base for a small group of players, maybe 2 to 3 players, maybe 4 to 5 if you are off doing stuff at different things, different places. Who knows, but it's a little mini base. I've spent too long rambling already in this video. I could spend another 10 minutes talking about the Liberator and all the stuff it's going to be good at, like doing mining missions. You could really use it for anything. It said pirates in particular, because they really need the extra safe havens, whereas a lawful player doing a mining mission isn't going to need the safe haven as much, unless it's really out in the frontiers mining. But again, I'm really trying to keep this as brief as possible. I spent too long rambling about other ships already, so let's move on to the Osprey. Osprey, another ship that we have that has been announced, but the amount of information we have on it basically amounts to 0. The Osprey is another military contract produced by Anvil for the military, and it is only mentioned in the lure. So it's mentioned in the lure, but we have absolutely no information on it apart from that. So, moving on from the Osprey to the Gladiator. Wait, nope, we've already talked about the Gladiator. Why have I got the Gladiator? Oh, because it's the military variant. Okay. Right, moving on to the Terrapin. The Terrapin is another military contract, and I think they're sold to the civilian as well. Terrapin is basically it's a scout ship. It's designed for 1 to 2 people, and it's sent off on expedition missions to find and report back. It is the type of thing, if you see a giant military fleet about to go through a jump gate, but don't know if there's enemies on the other side. So they send this through, have a wee nosy around, and then report back. It's a flying turtle. It has got really good armor, next to no guns, and is relatively good at stealth as well. Its job is to go and explore in the name of the military. It will be a great entry-level exploration ship. It will be great when partnered with the Carrack we talked about earlier. Maybe you've got a Carrack to do your mainstream expeditions to search in, and you've got this to do your little small ones. It doesn't fit inside the Carrack. If it did, that would have been one hell of a great combo, but it's too big to fit in the snub bay of the Carrack, so little Pisces is in there for now. Or you could maybe get the little 300 Explorer in there. That'd be a great combination. But yeah, not much else to say. Great armor, great Explorer, great entry level exploration ship. It was originally designed for the military. Right, moving on to the last of the flyables, and this is obviously the Terrapin is in game flyable at this point in time. Forgot to point that out. Moving on to the Valkyrie. The Valkyrie, the last of the airbound offerings from Anvil. It is basically a flying troop transport. It is the type of thing you expect to see when there's a military invasion of a planet. Lots of these coming down, dropping off troops and dropping off some rovers and some light vehicle support for those infantry. It has a small crew of 1 to 5, has quite a lot of guns, so it will be able to give some light ground support from all that firepower onto the troops it's deploying as well. Though it's not a huge amount of firepower, so it's not like it's going to be anywhere. It's not like it's going to be the thing that really terrifies the enemy unless they're really lightly armored. It's kind of like a flying APC in that regard. It's not really scary, it just gives light support in the gun department. Got plenty of seats. I can't remember how many seats on the top of my head, but it's something like 20, 22. So yeah, it's going to be able to deploy quite a lot of infantry. Can take a vehicle in there too, as long as it's not too big a vehicle. It can't fit a tank or anything, but anything smaller than a tank it can fit in. Yeah, not much else to say. It's your Pelican from Halo. It's your Thunderhawk from Warhammer without anywhere near as much firepower as a Thunderhawk. It gets your troops from A to B and gets them into the action or out of the action. Not much else to say. So moving on from the Valkyrie to the ground vehicles, in which there is only one at the moment, though this I expect to be changing actually very soon. And that ground vehicle is the Ballista. And I actually expect that to change. They have leaked it that can't remember the name of it off the top of my head. But basically, the Ballista is going to be but one of a single variant for this ship pretty soon. As it stands at this point in time, the Ballista is the only announced ship. But pretty soon, the Ballista is going to become just one variant of this sort of ground chassis. And it did have a name. I can't remember the name. The Atlas something or other. It was Atlas something or other. And so these vehicles are going to be the Atlas. And then the Ballista is going to be one variant of the Atlas. And you can have different variants to do different things. The Ballista is the missile artillery ground vehicle. It's the same size as a tank, so it is huge. You're going to need something very large to drop these off on planet. Has one hell of a lot of firepower. I'm actually quite excited because I think at IAE, which is in a few days for me, should be for yous. It'll be probably tomorrow by the time this video goes live. We should be seeing some information on these Atlases there, I do believe. So if you're watching this video after the day of release, for you, it already has changed from the Ballista to the Atlas, with the Ballista being one variant. And I can't wait to see what those variants do. So we've got the Ballista, which is the missile artillery variant, great at firing and taking out vehicles that are nearby and in the air. It'll be great at AA because it's missiles artillery, so it will be homing. Yeah, I think the first variant we're going to see is the sort of base model, which is going to be getting rid of the missiles and maybe get some crew transport capacity in there for some troops, make it like a giant APC. But yeah, that is that. Time for me to say I hope you've all enjoyed this. We got through Anvil faster than I expected. There was a lot of variants in there. There's a lot of Hornets. The Hornets, I think the main reason I was scared when I was looking at my list there is because there was lots of variants. Like there's 2 Gladiators, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. No, 7 Hornets alone. Yeah, 7 Hornets alone. So that makes it look like there's another whole 7 ships to talk about. But we got through it. And that was nowhere near as bad as I expected. I'm rambling and repeating myself. Time for me to say, I hope you've all enjoyed this. This has been every single Anvil ship announced at this point in time, with what was hopefully going to be announced in a couple of days' time. I'll see you on the next one. Bye.